recording. Chief is looking at me. He says, why? I don't know why. Why do anything? This world is so interesting. We're born into a country, into a family, certain existing conditions out of our control for quite a while. In America, you're not an adult or free until you're 18. What a weird thing. And even then, your freedom is constantly challenged. Your beliefs, it starts with your family. Will you just accept their beliefs as your own? Their political views, their religions, or lack of them? Beliefs about the world, people, the meaning of life. Can somebody answer these questions for you? Have you just resigned to others' explanations? I suppose you do until these explanations or beliefs fail you. And what a blessing in the long run. If this falsely contrived structure of ideas lets you down, better sooner than later. Some people have surrendered their ideas or freedom to explore them to figures of authority. Might be the church, the government, the universities, hoping that these establishments provide answers, fix everything, save them. Who will save you? A lot of people are waiting for people to save them. A lot of relationships are built on this idea, the victim and the hero, and it's unfortunate. From what I can tell, nobody is saving anyone, and yet we are part of the source. We are all part of the source. You didn't make yourself. You didn't even make your beliefs. It would be a great accomplishment to become aware of them and decide what you'll keep or dismiss. And the truth is, we are saved. We were saved from the get-go. There's always a co-pilot, and the greatest illusion in this realm is that we are separate, disconnected from everything. I guess we'll start off with this map. I thank you for being here this week. I love you all. God bless, and welcome. Welcome. Okay, 1 in the morning. What am I doing? I don't know. The summers are kind of difficult for me. It gets like 100 Fahrenheit, and I run a swamp cooler. It's noisy, but it's really cool. But it makes me feel disconnected from the world. Forget about making a video or taking a phone call. So what am I doing? I am looking at this map. I'm always behind when it comes to my research. This was like a week ago. I was excited, and now, I don't know, brand new to me. I have to trust that whoever I was a week ago found interest in this. I love old maps. I always have. All maps. So who made this map? A general map of North America, in which is expressed, a weird spelling, new roads, forts, engagements taken from actual surveys and observations made in the army employed there. Just weird wording. And notice here the artist is the same artist that designed our currency. You can see the artwork here. Same as a dollar, same as all the bills, like almost digital. Anyway, the year 1754 to 1761. Of course, America officially beginning in 1776. Officially. So this is pre-official America. The map of North America showing surveys, roads, new roads, forts, and engagements, whatever that is. Forts, though. Forts and roads. Pre-America forts and roads. And whoever made this map was pretty busy. And who made this map? Drawn by the late John Roquet. topographer to His Majesty. There we go. So the Majesty has sent his or her topographer to produce this map. And then here we have some French, I think saying pretty much the same thing, except instead of calling it a general map of North America, it says Carte Générale de l'Amérique septentrionale. Set, S-E-P-T, being 7, almost like the 7th nation. And interesting to just be calling it this in French, and then up here in English, North America. Giant fly this evening, almost supernatural sometimes. In Fulcanelli's The Mystery of the Cathedral, he says even a fly should not be able to watch the performing of the work, the alchemical process. So 1754, pre-America, we see a couple black men down here. And what I notice now, it's coming back to me, the little castles, or the cities represented as castles, have had a red dot placed over them. In this map, we still see dots everywhere portraying cities. So many cities in this time period. And this is still in Mexico. And there were a few castles that they had not painted over. In this map, California is connected, and we can actually see the Colorado, and it's called the Colorado. And it actually spills into a lake. Here again, you can see some of these castles that have been blotched over. Here we can see a star, like a star fort on the river. And what do we see? Fort Orleans. And this is up here, perhaps in the New Mexico region. We see New Mexico written here. And what really interests me about this map is all the writing. I mean, here this is pre-America, America, and there's a lot of information here. Here on the Missouri River, we have written, there are savage nations, likewise their villages, and are very changeable. Here we can see Chicago, Fort Chicago, kind of a French Native American Chicago, and also a blotched out castle, again pre-America. Fort St. Louis down here, Fort Chat Prairie de Rocher, and like the map said, it's depicting all the forts, so really forted out pre-America. Forts up here around Lake Superior. Be interesting to look on the Google Earth, and maybe we'll do that in the next segment. I happen to know up here on the St. Lawrence we have Chateau Frontenac in Quebec, and here it is depicted. It's been blotched out in red, and we see like two swords. Here a fort in Montreal, a whole bunch in Albany, so one in Boston, tons up here in Nova Scotia, the Bay of Fundy. A lot of action is what I'm saying before America. Somebody is going in and out along every coast, lake, and river. Here we know very well we have a beautiful star fort, either this one or this one, and clearly more than we see today. So this is a great clue. We're either going to find ruins of forts or mining operations, and I would bet most of these today will be giant mining operations, scrape fests. Queen's Fort over here. And does this make sense? I mean, it does from the lens that we look at things in this community, but nobody should have traversed this far, mapping these rivers so perfectly, something that would have to be done by air, at least in part. So let's take a quick pause. I guess it doesn't matter what you think about reality, only how we respond to it. As I've said over and over, I don't know. I have more faith in these old maps than any present historical authority. And even though everything is mapped out really well, it's always the same when it comes to the West. Like it says here, these parts are entirely unknown. Again, an old spelling. It is very uncertain whether this part is sea or land. So really fascinating. And yet we do see other maps from other nations in this time period and earlier, showing the West to have been charted, at least better than this, especially the Spanish maps. And I don't think Christopher Columbus discovered this land. However, I think some nations had a head start, having access to maps even predating these. So here it says the Aquan-Ishonagi, or Confederate Indians, 1701, at Albany, surrendered their beaver hunting countries. So these maps also acting as historical accounts, which may be false. No way would they surrender their lands. Lying between Lake Ontario and Lake Champlain, lying on the north side of the lakes Erie and Ontario, to the English, to be defended by them for the said confederates, their heirs and successors, forever. And the same was confirmed in 1726, when the Seneca and other tribes surrendered their habitations from another tribe, Cuyahoga, and 60 miles inland for the same, for the purpose to the English. The Confederates, formerly of 5, now of 7 nations, called by the French Iroquois, consist of 1, maybe Comanche or Mohawk, residing southwest of Albany, about 70 miles east of Osnego. So this is basically coordinates of inheritance, giving the boot to the natives residing on the East Coast. And how interesting that they call these tribes the Confederates, formerly of 5, now 7 nations. And again we have 7 nations down here. L'Amérique, 7 nations. 7 nations. The 7 nations of America. And here we have an account of giving the boot to the 7 nations. And these 7 nations are called the Iroquois by the French, but really consisting of the Seneca and all the tribes we know today. And if we look over here in the south of America, we see the old tribal lands in which they were booted. We see here the Chickasaw, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, and the Carolinas. And what do we see? We see castle cities. Savannah, Georgia here, Castle City, blotched out by red. We see St. Augustine, Castle City, blotched out by red. It must be another map I was looking at, and it was like they missed a few castles. Here we see a star fort, Fort Pensacola. So come on, let's have a look at Fort Pensacola in this next segment. Okay, where were we? Here we were. So, I recognize it from doing this research as a star fort. Not a castle city, but a star fort. Castles have all been blotched in red. Towns are still the towns. We see little circles. But here, let's have a look at this Fort Pensacola, pre-America. That's all. You saw the date down here, 1750 and earlier. Again, I know nothing. I'm just a curious human being, and all I see is strangeness. The artificial coastline here. Let me stay focused. So it seemed like it was somewhere around here, somewhere by the fish house, or Joe Patty's seafood. All artificial land. No talk of when this was all built. Never any talk of the artificial land and the monumental feat that it would be just to create. So I don't see it. And that's because it's not called Fort Pensacola today, or Pensacola. I think this shape is an S, the crook, at least in this time period. Could be wrong. But anyway, Fort Pensacola today is called Fort Pickens. Good old Fort Pickens. Millions of bricks. Here we go. Pre-American fort. Things to see at the Pensacola pontoons. Little star fort here. Fort McRee. Fort McRee. Great. And Fort Pickens. So Fort Pickens is still here, looking like a beautiful star fort. And then we get this Fort McRee, built out in the middle of the water, constructed by the United States in 1812. There we go. So important to build a fort out here in the water, in the sand, in 1812. Or was the fort turned into sand? Part of the old fort is located here. Let's have a little clicky. Battery Slemmer. There we go. Out here in this wasteland, we can see an outline, but totally buried. Buried and scraped. So let's have a look at Fort Pickens. Fort Pickens also out here in a pretty stupid place to build a fort, and boom, here she is. And a lot of buildings out here. A lot remaining. Swamplands containing a star fort. Just a beauty. Millions of bricks out here. Tons of concrete. I mean, how are you getting concrete out here? And just a lot of it underground, of course. This is just the surface. Pretty incredible. And let us verify when they tell us the fort was completed. The fort was completed in 1834. There we go. 1834? It's pretty early to be building something like this out here. All of this, whatever was going on. But out here on an island. But we're not going to take that approach today. What we see is this fort being depicted on this map in 1750, about 100 years before we're told it was completed. And that explains why most of these forts were never operational, why they were built and abandoned. It's because we never built them. And we have proof. We see them existing on these old maps. Here, for example, on the of Florida, we have another one. Out here in the Dry Tortuga National Park, another star fort. Out here in the stupidest place possible. This, of course, is called Fort Jefferson. Old Fort Jefferson. 16 million bricks, we're told. Built for nothing. Well, built for the tourists that enjoy it. Just absolutely mind-blowing. And like I said, never used. Never used in battle. The most action this facility has seen is these tourists. Perhaps some concessions in here. This man seems to have brought his own lunch. Sandwich, perhaps. I don't really like this 3D view. Let's take it off. Maybe there we go. 2014 looks a lot better. I really don't like what they're doing. Okay, in 2017. 2022, still decent. It just gets stupid. I'm not sure why the strong or heavy orange tinting. So is this a smoking gun? Just one fort shown on a map before it should have been built. And this isn't even it. It says Fort Pensacola or whatever, but it's not depicted on this island. That's just a smaller fort. I think the Star Fort was actually here in Pensacola somewhere on the north side, and it's either been scraped or reutilized. So this pointy coastline could be showing the old fort, perhaps this airport, check along the river, but we do have plenty of Star Fort. The idea is the whole cities were Star Forts. Forts within forts. These artificial coastlines were part of it. None of this has been created by our people. You see the star shape, massive, similar to Malta. Here again we see another airport, another scrape fest. And we have the artificial coastline, again protecting the inlet to the river. Super pointy angles. Are you telling me the river didn't cut this corner down if it was natural? And since we're here, I'll just show you a couple neighboring star forts. This one is called Fort Proctor. Zoom, zoom, zoom into the swamplands that are actually not natural. And we have this fort out here. I made a video on it in the past. I'll flash a picture. It's a beautiful castle out here in the water. Kind of a no-namer. I wish we could drop the man. No, and this is history. Here we go. Pretty amazing. Let me show you another. Fort Livingston. Look at this terrain. Look at where these forts are. All of this is so interesting, but let's look at the Star Fort Livingston. Boom, 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 and there we go. This one's awesome too. Just millions of bricks. A lot of infrastructure out here buried. Let's take one little pause, and I'll consider our next segment. Okay, final segment. Took some time to research so that I could get right to the point. Here we can see New Orleans. Again, this map, 1755. And we go up the river and we see Natchez up here on this old 1755 pre-America map. Natchez. And a red dot. And then it says Fort Destroyed. Red dot. Let me try to get this on the screen for you. Natchez. And here we see Natchez above New Orleans. Baton Rouge or Baton Rouge, red stick. And we go up the river and we're looking for a fort below Natchez. Again, we see Natchez here and there's a fort that says destroyed. So I combed this Google Earth and I think I found it here. Below Natchez. And in short, I think we see evidence everywhere. I mean, you have the Mississippi River, but if we zoom in, we see another river up here, right alongside it, and this one is clearly artificial. And in fact, they even call it the Old River. Here you can see, on the left we have the Old River, and on the right the Mississippi. So let's zoom into the Old River. So here's the Oldie, and along the Old you have a canal, star-shaped. So anyway, I'm still looking for the fort below Natchez, as seen on this map. And even on this map it says destroyed, so we also have a clue. Things were already destroyed back then. I mean, here we can see a grid, like an old town site, now covered in trees, but we still see the pattern. The surveyed streets, canals, or rail lines. It's everywhere. But let's keep going. I've placed a pin down here. So much to see, but let's stay on point. Here we go. You can see my pin. Fort. So it doesn't look like much. Again, if I didn't have something to go off of, like this old map that tells me there should be a fort, a destroyed fort below Natchez. And here we are, below Natchez. Let me show you again. Natchez up here and down here. An absolute scrape fest turned into farmland, but you can see the star outline. Bum, 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 bum. And now a little town here, a little preservation called Angola, but they really mess with you once you zoom in to try to get a better look. Okay, I'll let it settle down. Here's what we get. Zoom in a little more. I mean, really? Thank God for my old map. Let's change the date to modern. Here we go. Boom. Now that they've had time to scrape some more, ready to reveal it to us. What could possibly be left of this star fort? Some walls, some canals, some buildings that look like prisons. And of course, right? Look at this stuff out here. I mean, the whole thing, developed and scraped. The whole realm, really. So I think that's it. The big takeaway is the calling of the Native Americans the Confederates, and that they are indeed the 7 nations that we see on all of these maps. So for this week, I thank you for being here. I love you all. God bless, and I'll see you next week.